Okay, did you all get the little, hey, we're recording now? Okay, great. So is there someone, I'm looking at a couple of team leads right here. They're like, is there someone who would actually like to go first while I pull up my clock?
Isle of Wight will go first. We don't mind.
Okay, terrific. So here's what I'm going to ask everybody to do. If you can, switch your view to speaker so we can actually see Marcia. Now, Marcia, you're on the big
spotlighted or anything.
I know, all the pressure's on. We can see you, we can hear you, we're recording you.
All the pressure, all the pressure.
Ready? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, can you actually see where I am on your screen?
Yes.
So I'll just go like this when you've got a minute left.
I may not need all 4 minutes.
Okay, great. Awesome. And remember to use that chat function, guys. So if you hear something you want to connect with Isle of Wight on, or an idea or a reflection, stick it in the chat. All right, Marcia, way to take the lead.
Go. All right. So I have on my amazing team here with me, if they'll wave at you when I call them, so you can connect a face with them. I have Miss Laura Sullivan. She is principal at one of our high schools at Windsor High School. We have Miss Karen Washington, who is an English teacher at Smithfield High School, our other high school. Ms. Shantae Denson, who is principal of Hardy Elementary School, one of the 5 elementary schools in Isle of Wight. And then also her instructional coach, Ms. Sherelle Ashburn. I think it's important to note that as part of our team, Laura and Sherelle are both graduates of Isle of Wight County Schools. And so they've been a part of our school community for a very, very long time. So they bring a unique perspective. Not with us today, we have Mr. Lombardo, who is our assistant superintendent, and then also Amy Hurst, who is a 4th grade teacher. When we selected our team, we wanted to make sure that we had representation of all different aspects of what we do. So we wanted elementary, we wanted instructional coaches, we have some central admin, we had one at high school. So that went into deciding who was going to be a member of our team. Our reason for innovating, we're on a relentless pursuit of an outcome, and where we really want all of our students to be successful in their academics, their career, and beyond. So in life, we want them to be good citizens. We want them to be people that come back to our community and help us continue to grow. And so part of that also comes to this whole idea of helping us mitigate the mandate versus the mission. And, when you think about testing and those sorts of things versus deeper learning and really getting kids to think critically about material. And we've heard that from our business partners and from our parents and our community members alike. And so we also talked a little bit about insanity and doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And for years, I think education has kind of been stuck on that rat race of how do we keep doing the same thing, but we're not really getting students to do more or learn more or think more about the concepts that are in front of them. So our vision is to reconnect and re-engage our learning community to ensure deeper learning for all of our students using an equity lens. And so when we talk about that, we're talking about deeper learning is something our school community has been passionate about for a long time. We've done the High Tech High, the project-based learning, the expos of student learning. We've been down the 5 C's thing and we've taught that and we've had our teachers teaching that and using that in their classrooms every day. What we find though is that it's easy for our teachers to use that with our advanced kids. It's easy to use that in your AP class, in your honors class, in your DE class, but you don't see it as much in your inclusion class. We see these great, beautiful projects that come out of AP Lit, but they might not come out of English 9. And so we really want to change that landscape for all kids. And some of the things we talked about are those underlying pieces, the relationships that we have to build back, especially since kids have been out for so long. now about those social emotional supports for students, teachers, and parents too. You know, we talked a lot about our parents as a disconnected part of the school community and where we are right now. We talked about logistical changes and making sure teachers have time and space to meet kids where they are. Increasing opportunities to gather feedback from our stakeholders, and not just stakeholders in our immediate teachers and students, but also our parents and guardians, our business partners, the community at large. Connections and collaboration with outside agencies, and then also creating a sense of belonging with all students, staff members, and families. And we did get to a couple of action steps. We have this set of focus documents that kind of guide our instruction. Am I
I'm
hitting
going to
my 4 minutes?
pause you
Oh,
and say,
no.
oh my gosh, it's already been 4.5 minutes. See, it goes fast.
It does.
So here's what I am going to ask. Marcia, the focus documents are such an important part. So I'm going to have us do 2 things at once. Marcia, if you can find and link the focus documents into the chat. And then the rest of the other 5 divisions, any thoughts or ideas that came to mind listening to Marcia in the last 4 minutes, if you can throw those on the Zoom chat, we're going to take, about 30 seconds and then transition. And Fredericksburg, I'm going to have you go next. You're next on my screen. Oh, Fredericksburg, you said you would like to go next. Good timing.
Yeah, we would. Can you hear us?
Yes, but don't go yet. Hold on.
Okay.
So right now, if folks can throw into the chat anything for Marcia and the Isle of Wight team in terms of connection points, and then Marcia is going to be linking those core documents from Isle of Wight. And Marcia, we'll make sure to put those in the resource library also.
So just know that the link that I'm putting in here goes to a file where some of them have been copied. You might see 2 or 3 copies of the same one in there because I don't have a nice, neat, pretty file of them anymore. But so if you go in there, you'll see several for each piece.
It'll be judgment-free viewing.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Amy and Marcia. Okay. Fredericksburg, I'm going to get 4 minutes on the calendar. Nate, I appreciate you throwing something in there. You can keep those comments going. So you're going to hear the dog bark at 4 minutes. I'm going to put my finger up here when you've got 1 minute left. It does go quite quickly. Marcia's back on mute, so you should be good to go now.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, everyone from Fredericksburg City. Apologize. I'm looking at the screen so I can see all of you, but the camera's pointing at me, so just bear with me. I'll get right to it. Our work, the direction we've gone, we just feel our students, and sort of why innovate? We feel our students deserve the best instruction from quality teachers, so that's where our focus is going to be. Our teacher turnover rate is high. It's 45% right now of staff with less than 5 years. So that's a high turnover, we feel. So the question we sort of ask ourselves, and we'll need help from the Innovation Network, is how can we identify, attract, and retain high quality educators? So that's our focus. What is our action plan? I'll skip down to that. We want to create, there's, very often a profile of a learner. Is there a profile of an educator? So I think that's one of our first steps, is create a profile of an educator. Determine what a quality Fredericksburg City teacher looks like by seeking feedback from business owners, families, all of our community stakeholders. Identify teachers in the system that demonstrate those qualities and what they find attractive about our division. So learn from the quality teachers that we already have. Seek ways to use that information to add incentives to be able to be a competitive place and attract quality teachers. How will we know it's working? A few indicators that we identified: the teachers stay. Does our retention rate improve? Attitude surveys from not only teachers but also students and parents. Teacher attendance, mid-year evaluations. Long-range indicators: graduation rate increases, dropout rate decreases, discipline numbers decrease. What resources and relationships do we need to utilize? Our HR department for sure, and then also the innovation network that's on this conference call today. Specifically, what do we need from our coach? Some sample educator profiles from other divisions. If you all have done that work already, if you could share that with us, we'd appreciate that. And then also feedback from our coach on how to narrow this topic down to something manageable, to have a visible win soon. We know that this is a pretty broad focus area, so we are trying, and our challenge throughout the day has been to get more concise and pointed in our work.
Excellent. Are you done?
I'm done.
Wow, so you have a minute left. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to direct you actually to the chat and let everybody know that there was a statewide profile of a Virginia educator that was developed in the last 2.5 years. So George Mason and William and Mary went out and surveyed educators all across the state. And they were trying to think about new ways to train and develop teachers. But the big piece here was, if you're going to expect a different experience from students, how does the experience need to be different for the educators in the room? And so that's a good jumping off point. You know, it needs to be customized, contextualized to Fredericksburg and other divisions. But I, at least for one, will be happy to put you in touch with the people who were the architects behind that. I actually had the benefit of being the funder of that initiative. So really, you know, excited to meld that into this bigger conversation of communities. I love that I already see Nate and Ross pulling things into the chat. So the dogs are barking. We're going to take 30 more seconds. That if you've got something to share with Fredericksburg, certainly that is a huge pain point that you mentioned, about 45% turnover. So if there are ways to support and push in and care for Fredericksburg with resources or ideas, or also like deep empathy and, hey, we should connect, we're having similar pieces, this is your chance to throw that into the chat. 30 seconds can feel a little bit awkward, but we're going to do it. And that way folks can watch there. And then the next people are going to be Manassas Park. So we're going to give this about 20 more seconds. Throw anything in the chat that would be helpful for our Fredericksburg team. Pam, I see you chuckling and getting ready. You're going to be great. And you still have, don't worry, you still have a full 15 seconds. Good, I see Ross adding in something about the induction process. I'll say New Kent has a really tremendous body of work on how you use summer to support and train teachers and pull out some of that support during the school year. So that's a good connection. All right, Pam, I'm getting 4 minutes on the clock. Can you see me and you're like bored? So if I go like this, okay, I think the 1 minute is not working. So I'm gonna go like this, that's 1 minute. And okay, Fredericksburg City, I see you have seen the comments in the chat. We're zipping over to Manassas Park. Ready?
All right,
Go.
we are ready. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pam Kelso from Manassas Park City Schools. So I'm here with my amazing team today, and we have had a very fruitful discussion, especially over the course of the last hour. I'm very thankful that 4 of our 6 members were participants in Cohort 1. And during Cohort 1, they did a tremendous amount of work to develop a large framework of different expectations and guidelines for the district. And it was getting ready to roll out when, of course, the pandemic hit and there were some other factors in place. So we definitely want to build on all of that work that was done during Cohort 1. And really focus on one of the aspects of the framework, which was inclusive excellence. So during the last hour, we did have a discussion about inclusive excellence. We really think that we want to take a look at what our individual students are doing through an equity lens, culturally responsive teaching, all the different supports that we can put into place to meet the needs of all of our students. So why innovate? Well, the world and the workforce are rapidly changing, and each of our students having those specific needs, we have to find ways to connect with them, to connect with their family, and to bring the community and the school together. We know there are large gaps. Our community suffered a lot during COVID, and so even with the work of Cohort 1, we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully. We know that there's some additional bridging that we need to do. And if we can really dig into that inclusive excellence and what it means to represent all people, all of our students, we want to kind of move that more towards an individual lens. So we came up with our vision, and that's to instill in all of our practices that success is dependent on how well we value, engage, and include the rich individuality of our students, staff, families, and community members as we intentionally foster learning paths without barriers. So we know that there's a lot of change that needs to take place in our district. We have to be able to identify and acknowledge biases and assumptions, and really need to have those tough conversations and have the courage to hold each other accountable, whether it's at the district level, the administrative level, and into the classrooms as well. We worry that there are consistently low expectations for our students, and that those are creating exponential gaps in their learning and really preparing them for the future. So that's as far as we got today. It was a very good discussion, and we've discussed this with Stephanie. We appreciate having the time and the safe space to have those discussions. So we're even going to get together for a couple hours tomorrow morning to continue working through this framework.
Amazing. You still had 45 seconds, so nicely done. And I put a couple of obvious connections to me in having conversations in the chat. And if your team feels like the common language framework is shareable with this cohort, would love if you linked it, and then I'll be sure to put it in the division documents folder as well. We are going to take that same 30 seconds where if there's anything that you heard that you want to be connecting with Manassas Park on, this is your time to add it to the chat. I know the team is watching that chat. And yeah, so you'll see some of those connections, Pam and team, up a little bit higher.
We're going to put the framework into the chat.
One of the things I just want to mention that I really appreciate about the Manassas Park team that I would encourage other divisions to consider is using some of the VALIN team time to actually get together and reflect and learn as a team as they are innovating. So back to the context being different, you know, in a post-March 2020 world, how can I, as your coach, help you to carve out protected time when there is no time to actually be doing some of the reading and thinking and talking and reflecting as a group, even as you're working very quickly toward deliverables or products or ideas. So let's see, I'm going to scroll over. This is like, who will I see next? I see Elena. So we're going to go to Chesapeake next. Thank you, Manassas Park. And Elena, I'm going to stick 4 minutes on the clock. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
You're up now.
All right. So our big idea as to why do we want to innovate is we want to provide social emotional learning experiences that empower all of our learners in their holistic development and foster caring and collaborative community systems of support. So we've seen an increase in crisis reports, also a demand for tiered mental health interventions. And we know that if we have a strong comprehensive tier 1 SEL instructional model, that will allow us to take a proactive approach to developing our students' skills and their capacity, including things like self-regulation strategies, building their resilience in response to school responsibilities, social media pressures, and things like that. We also know that we can't model healthy behaviors unless we have healthy adults in our classrooms and in our schools. And so there's definitely a need for systems and strategies to build our adult SEL capacity and competencies. We also know that that needs to carry into the home. So our parents and guardians are in need of strategies to build their family's SEL capacity and also make sure that they have access to community-based resources. So ultimately, we know that we can't address any inequities and gaps that exist or develop intercultural competence or foster inclusivity or provide deeper learning opportunities without leveraging SEL to ensure that all of our students are seen, heard, and experience belonging in our learning community. We know that that cannot happen unless we create these systems and practices. So step one for us will be to develop a protocol that can be used as a co-design model for addressing problems of practice and innovating initiatives related to our identified equity gaps and SEL needs with our students and other stakeholders. There's definitely, I'm going to kind of blend these together. We have a cultural shift, a need for a cultural shift in our district to make sure that we're using a decision-making model that is really involves more diverse stakeholder involvement, especially in ensuring that our students have voice in that process so that diverse perspectives are heard, to make sure that the root cause analysis of our problems is authentic and that the solutions that we derive are relevant and intentional to those we're seeking to serve. Not just the ones we conjure up and think will help, but really have them co-designing and authoring these initiatives with us. So if we develop this protocol, we can use it for multiple purposes down the road. The second project, the first project that we'd like to use this model for would be to co-design what it may look like for explicit and implicit SEL experiences, as well as tiered systems of social emotional support for our high school students. So we already have morning meetings and responsive advisory meetings in our elementary and middle, but right now we don't really have anything strategic and intentional district-wide for our high schoolers. So we're really looking forward to co-designing with them and hopefully activating a culture shift that social emotional development is just as important as academic development and that it's everyone's responsibility.
Awesome, Elena. Okay, the chat has been blowing up as you've been talking.
Thanks.
So because
Oh,
we're
okay.
tight on time. Oh, and you've got some folks clapping too. We're going to shift immediately over to Ross, which is a strong connection. I know the New Kent team was a part of who was chatting in. So we are tighter in time. So we're going to do Ross and then Lisa. Then we'll go back to the main stage together. So Ross, if you're ready, I'm going to have folks keep chatting to Elena and ready? You're gonna go now.
All right, I actually already put my report in the chat. It just said ditto everything Elena just said. I really questioned, Elena, whether or not you were in our Zoom room as we were talking here as a team. Because literally quote for quote, there was a lot of the same discussions about just the impact that the last 18 months has had on our kids and the fact that trying to get them into deeper learning right now when they're so struggling with the social emotional needs that they that need to be healed from the last 18 months, but then also the inconsistencies that they're struggling with right now with us jumping in and out of quarantine and teachers jumping in and out of quarantine. And so not having any consistency of what's going on in the classroom is really a struggle. And if we can't get past that, that learning is really not going to be effective. And we're already seeing some just social concerns as far as the ways in which they interact. One of the discussions was, we have a sixth grader who hasn't been in school for a full year since he was a third grader and is struggling with a lot of the same things we see typically out of a third or fourth grader because they haven't had those experiences. And so ours really delve around what are those supports that we need to have in place. We put in a new SEL curriculum at the middle school for tier 1. We don't have anything at the high school either. We did a lot of searching over the summer and really could not find anything that we were impressed by and really liked. And so we really need something at our high school level to be able to provide supports there. And our elementary, while we have something, we do need to go back and take a look at how consistently it's being used and what the fidelity there is. So, but we looked at it from multiple aspects. So that was the students. We also did follow in with, okay, but then how are we providing support for staff? So I was really excited when it was Nate or somebody said it earlier, how are the admin supporting teachers? And then how are we supporting admin? And then also, how do we support the parents? Parents are experiencing all of these same social, emotional concerns as well. And so how do we bring them into the conversation? So our discussion really evolved around those three populations of people and how do we provide supports to all three? And if it goes beyond things that we can provide, how do we identify additional supports that they can seek out to get that help as necessary? And how can we take, we have like these tier 1 SEL curriculum, but how do students see the relevancy throughout their day? If we're teaching it in isolation, how do we now incorporate that into everything we do? And so if they have this lesson in the morning, okay, so then how does that apply when you get to science class, social studies class, and English class? And giving them space within those content areas to interact with those SEL concepts and be able to carry those out in the classroom. So that was a lot of the parts of our discussion wrapped up into as tight of a little nutshell as I could.
Excellent, Ross. Thanks for helping us make up on time. And if anybody is really like very time sensitive, I already told the main stage we needed 5 extra minutes, so we're fine. Don't worry. So I'm going to ask that folks, if you've got thoughts or ideas for New Kent, that you add them into the chat and then invite Lisa and Chesterfield to go ahead and bring us home. And I can't see Lisa on the screen.
Right
so
here.
Are you there? Okay, great.
I'm here.
Good.
So
Ready?
I'm ready. So I'll just kick it off. As a division, we're focusing on really connecting our school communities. Because of the size of our division, we're really looking at the cohesiveness and making sure that we function as a school division and not have schools who are functioning as silos. And so, we're really doing it through our SIP plan, our school improvement and innovation plan, as well as through our feeder patterns. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt Stripmatter, who's one of our principals who really is doing a lot of the leading on this work. So Matt, take it away.
This is perfect. I'm from New Jersey, so this will be nice and quick. Because of the size of Chesterfield, it's easy to work in silos. And so now, however, we're looking at breaking down those walls to build the connectedness and cohesion within the division. It doesn't seem very innovative really when you first look at it, but the innovation here lies in the fact that we're working together to create a small town feel, a personalized feel inside of a very large division. And so why do we want to innovate? Because we desire to move away from traditional schooling. The worst thing we can do through this pandemic is go back to what we know already doesn't work for all students. In Chesterfield, we believe in all students all the time, every student, every day. We have an intentional focus on school innovation and improvement that changes the school experience to better meet the needs of all students. And so what are we doing? Our vision is purposeful alignment of elementary school to middle school to high school through that improvement process, which supports student readiness for what is next in their academic or career future. And so what are we doing to change things? We have an intentionality, a purpose, time, and focus. We believe we are headed in the right direction with a focus on normalizing what we are currently doing within one district in the division. Feeder pattern leaders need to be established first, and then some work within that leadership group can enhance outcomes for all. When you look at the research of Lewis, Leithwood, Wallstrom, and Anderson, they make the claim that based on preliminary review of research, leadership is second only to classroom instruction as influence on student learning. And so therefore, when we connect the feeder patterns, this will in turn build more cohesion within the classrooms, but then ultimately, and then most importantly, within the community as well. So that's where we are at this point in time, nice and quick.
That's excellent, Matt. But in the chat, I said I'm from New Jersey and brevity is not my thing. So it's not Jersey. It's just you, I guess.
How about Northeast New Jersey? How's that?
Oh yeah, that's my husband. I'm central. There it is. That's the answer. Okay. So that was excellent. If you've got any last thoughts for Matt and the Chesterfield team, I'm blown away by the idea of using school improvement to drive innovation and the sort of like academic chiropractics of alignment. So I think that there's going to be a lot of learning there. Throw it into the chat now, and I'm going to stop the recording and invite all of us to go back